Hello, this is Bill Harvell, fellow dying inmate in the mental asylum that is our world. We pray that this presentation helps mature and deepen our journey in the faith.
Bible Alive, the biblical cosmos, the imaginary mountains of Matthew. Today we're going to be talking about mountains featured in the Gospel according to Matthew. The evangelist Matthew deliberately highlighted mountains in his account of the career of Jesus. Although sometimes he names the mountain, for example, in Matthew 24, verse 3, he names a real mountain, the Mount of Olives. Most often, he doesn't name the mountains he's dealing with. In Matthew 28, verse 16, for example, it's just a mountain in Galilee. In general, scholars agree that Matthew's mountain references intend to associate Jesus with Moses, with the Exodus, or with other elements in the Israelite tradition. Bread from sky vault with Moses, bread from sky vault with Jesus. These familiar literary and theological interpretations have been modified and enriched by culturally sensitive interpretations. Professors K.C. Hanson and Philip F. Esler conducted a ritual analysis of the events that took place on the unnamed mountains in Matthew. A ritual analysis. A ritual is a social procedure by which persons are transformed from one social situation into another. So that's going to be a handy definition to keep on the mind as we proceed. Hanson and Esler concluded that in these narratives, Matthew proposed rituals which his community of Messianist believers, the Matthean Jesus group, and perhaps subsequent communities, might imitate and thereby might seek to achieve transformation. A review of these narratives with additional cultural background would seem to confirm the conclusion of Hanson and Esler. Let's talk a little bit about mountains in Syro-Palestine. There are two major mountain chains in ancient Syro-Palestine. West of the Jordan River lie the Western Highlands, or the Central Mountains, running north and south in three distinct ranges. The Israelites first settled in these ranges: Galilee, Manasseh, Ephraim, and Judah. Roads in this range have tended to follow the ridges. East of the Jordan lie the Eastern Highlands, or the Transjordanian Mountains, which extend from Mount Hermon in the north all the way down to Edom in the south. The mountains vary in size, but some are more than 3,500 feet high. The Bible reflects the many ways in which human beings use mountains. Some live on mountains. Genesis chapter 36, verse 8. So Esau settled in the highlands of Seir. Others take refuge on mountains when needed. Matthew chapter 24, verse 16, Jesus said, "When you see the desolating abomination spoken of through Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then those in Judea must flee to the mountains." So not only do people live on mountains, some people, but some people temporarily live there to seek shelter. Mediterranean shepherds pasture animals on mountains. Luke chapter 8, verse 32. A herd of many swine was feeding there on the hillside. Some people assembled in mountains for ritual purposes. Joshua chapter 8, verse 30 to 33. Later, on Mount Ebal, Joshua built to Yahweh, the God of Israel, an altar of unhewn stones on which no iron tool had been used, just as Moses, the servant of Yahweh, had commanded the Israelites, as recorded in the book of the law. On this altar, they sacrificed burnt offerings to Yahweh and made communion sacrifices. There, in the presence of the Israelites, Joshua inscribed upon the stones a copy of the law written by Moses. Some people are even buried on mountains. 1 Kings chapter 23, verse 16. When King Josiah turned and saw the graves there on the mountainside. And Jerusalem has a long history with its mountainous ranges of folk being buried there. Ancient peoples associated deities with mountains, and Israel was no exception. For example, Baal was associated with a mountain. Baal Zephon, the master of Zephon, Mount Zephon, or Mount Cassius in Phoenicia, was associated with Baal. Yahweh, God, was associated with Horeb, or Zion. Moreover, mountains are an important symbol in the political religions of the Eastern Mediterranean as sites of political religious temples. Consider the temples in Babylon, Delphi, Gerizim, and Zion. Indeed, in the Hebrew language, the same word, hekal, means both temple and palace. Palace, you would think political. Temple, you would think religious, but they're the same to these ancient peoples. Similarly, mountains distant from inhabited areas were considered places of divine abode. For example, Mount Sinai and Mount Zaphon in Phoenicia, or Mount Olympus. Finally, these notions also attach to humanly constructed mountains with political religious symbolism, ziggurats, and pyramids. Consulting biblical passages where mountains are mentioned reveals that the word is used ambiguously. Sometimes mountains describe a range, and other times a single mount or a part of a mountain range. The common element is reference to an elevation of some kind, though not always very high. Hey, thanks for watching. Just continue the playlist for the next part of the study. If you have further questions, this is good. They will get addressed, so keep watching. If you found value, please subscribe, like, and share. As always, questions, comments, and criticisms are most welcome. God bless you.